We have to educate people for the accomplishments that women have contributed to history. And unfortunately, that is the one month out of 12 months that we have the opportunity to shine. I made history. If I don't tell it, none of these guys, they gonna tell it. If the women don't tell their own history, it ain't gonna get told.
Women have been serving our country since before we were a country. Every single conflict that this country has been involved in, women have been there. It's just, they're the unsung heroes in many ways. And, even women serving in Vietnam probably don't get the recognition they really deserve. And I feel very fortunate that I came from a generation where women were really getting out there and being part of shoulder to shoulder with all service members from every branch. And I feel very lucky to have walked in the footsteps of women who blazed a trail so that I could do that.
They made the commitment to serve. And I think our country and our citizens should recognize that women have done their part. They've stepped up and they want to serve and they're willing to serve. Many times they do go the extra mile just to be recognized, and they need to, I think our country owes it to them, and I think women owe it to themselves to let our country know. And so many times women don't talk about their service or don't tell because they say, oh, I didn't do very much. And I'm kind of in the same way. At the time I went in, women weren't allowed on ships. So I served on land in an office, and it's really hard. Sometimes I can't relate to the women who serve now because they did things that we didn't even imagine that women could do at that time. And it just touches my heart to think that they have been able to go the next step and conserve, leading our sailors and soldiers into battle, and they demand respect and they command respect.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this very special broadcast. I'm Brandon Wilson. I'm the Public Information Director for the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. Women's History Month, initially proclaimed by President Carter as National Women's History Week, beginning March 8, 1980, is a time when we celebrate the amazing contributions of American women and how they've made history to our culture and also the society of our great nation. Our purpose today is to highlight the specific contributions that women have made to the U.S. military. During the American Revolution, America's women first served not as combatants, but as the seamstresses, cooks, and nurses for militia and continental troop formations at camps, posts, and stations spread throughout the emerging nation during the conflict. Many even served in combat alongside their husbands, epitomized by the famous Molly Pitcher, who may be a composite of different American women who stood out in various battles. Mary Ludwig Hayes was commended by General George Washington for service as a cannoneer, and both Margaret Corbin and Deborah Sampson received veteran pensions after the Revolution. Now, fast forward over the years and through the centuries, America's women have attained the highest officer and enlisted grades and have been selected to top leadership positions within the Department of Defense, creating greater opportunities for following generations to attain what was once unattainable solely based on gender. Today, we have a distinguished group of women veterans who will share their stories, their trials, their triumphs, and available pathways forward as young women who choose to serve, wearing a uniform of any service, swearing an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, bearing true faith and allegiance to the rights and freedoms specified and implied by the living historic document. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome all of today's panelists. Happy to have everyone here. I have retired Brigadier General Twanda Tia Young, Brooke Jackson Kahn, who served as an Army combat medic and is now founder of She's the Veteran, SCDVA PD Regional Integration Officer and Army veteran Jade Berkeley, and Robin Phoenix Johnson, who's an Army veteran and CEO of the Best Medicine Brigade. Ladies, thank you so much for all being here.
Thank you for having me.
Same here.
Awesome, awesome. So I will start with you, Robin. Let's jump right into this discussion. So, what was it that really inspired you as a woman to join the military?
I only muted it because my kids were coming home from school, and I was like, "Be quiet, mom's on a thing."
Gotcha. I was like,
I
did she
knew that was
hear?
exactly. You
Awesome.
know, this is right when school is letting out, guys. I feel like that's very relatable. This is the juggling the life of a mom.
Yes,
No,
it is.
and I answered the question. It was my mom. My mom was, I was a little sassy teenager, and she was like, "I dare you to go in the army. Maybe they'll, get you some discipline. You'll learn to have some respect." And she's like, "You never last a day." And I was like, "I'm gonna do it." So I guess the joke's on me, right?
It happens. I think that our parents sometimes are our greatest inspirations. I know for me, I've had military members within my own family, and I think that's inspired a lot of us, even some of us in our own generations, to join the military as well. And Brooke, for you, I think with you joining the military, your story is very, very inspirational as well. Talk to us a little bit about why you decided to join.
Yeah, well, so my grandfather, World War II, D-Day, second wave, Omaha Beach, Purple Heart recipient. My dad's a retired Green Beret. My cousins and uncles, if you were a man, were all in the military. But very proud to always remind people that I'm the very first woman in my family to serve. It's by far the best thing I ever chose to do. Still in the reserves now, even though I did active duty originally. Yeah, long line of history. Wanted to do my service for my country just like my family did.
Jay, you're continuing service now through SCDVA, but talk about your experiences and why you decided to join the military as well.
So I was actually in ROTC in high school and hated it. Like I thought, this really sucks. I hated wearing the uniform every week. So once I graduated, I thought I would never be affiliated with the military. And I actually ended up joining right after 9/11 happened. But the biggest motivation for me was taking care of the strong women in my family. It was never a thought in my mind that there was a disparity or any difference of treatment between women and men in the military. I never even thought about it. It just was something that I needed to do to take care of my family at the time, which it took care of my family at the time, which I took care of my mom through my military service. And then now that I'm out, continuing my military service is also helping me to take care of my son. So the military has served me well my entire life.
Awesome. I think family support is also a big reason why so many join the military themselves. And I think that was a part of your mission as well, Brigadier General Young as well. You're retired now. But tell us a little bit about your experiences in joining the military and recently being honored, here in South Carolina.
Yeah, retired. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I wish I could share a inspirational story akin to my fellow panel members. But for me, a struggling student in college, I found out that there was money to be had if you went into ROTC. And I have my sister who's Master Sergeant retired, my brother who served to the rank of E7 and other family members that were in. And I saw how they were able to travel and come home, and it looked like they had it all together and everything, and I wanted to be a part of that. But that $100 stipend was very enticing, so I could go down to the corner on Sundays at Bojangles and get 2 wings and a biscuit. That was the reason why I joined, got stuck, because I loved it. I love the camaraderie, and I love just being different from my fellow classmates, of doing something more interesting with my time.
I think you all talk about, being different, and I thank you so much for that response. I think that being able to join the military itself, do you share some of your stories, Robin, especially how you felt the first moment when you decided to step directly foot into someone's office to decide, in a recruitment office, to say, hey, I want to join the military. What was it like when you first experienced that? And then when you first started day one in the military, talk about that experience.
Well, I was a cheerleader for high school basketball when I went to my recruiter's office. And so here I am, this like little tiny 5'3", back then skinny person, and walking in and in a cheerleading outfit. And they were like, "You are in the wrong place. Like, I think you need to go down the hall and maybe sign up for something else. So, and then fast forward, day one, they're just yelling at you, screaming at you, really making the whole experience like you would imagine it would be from the movies. And I thought, what did I get myself into? Like, mom was right. Like, this was not a good idea. But 26 years, 5 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, I guess I found my tribe. So it worked out.
Brooke, would you say that you had some of the same experiences as well, from when you first decided, hey, this is a great idea, to when you first stepped foot into the military?
1000%. So I definitely had all the friends that were laughing at me because also girly. Most of them were like, we'll see you in a day. You're never going to make it in basic training. You'll never survive. The Army wouldn't have you. This is a joke. All of those things. And so I think, kind of like Robin said, though, it almost became like a motivator of like, well, I'll show you. And sure enough, like getting to basic training and stuff. I mean, it started at the very beginning where I'm seeing some of the guys fall out. And I'm like, nope, I can do this even more than you, it looks like right now, So definitely digging deep, proving something to yourself. They always say they break you down and build you back up. And it's true. I think that sometimes when you learn how tough that you really are, the military was definitely a good way of showing me that.
Jay, would you say that you had some of those similar experiences as well? Like, what was your turning point moment when you first stepped foot into the military?
People always laugh when I say this, but literally, the Air Force office was closed, like they were out to lunch at the time. So I went right next door and ended up getting recruited to go into the military. And again, I was super girly, just like Brooke and Robin. I used to get in trouble during formation because I would, switch too much when I marched. It was totally not my characteristic or not my personality at all. But just like Brooke said, you end up learning so much about yourself as you're doing this thing that a lot of people would assume that you couldn't. And you're excelling and accomplishing so much. So you prove something to yourself and you end up falling in love with it, as Tia mentioned.
And Tia, going back to you as well, I mean, what was that turning point moment for you when you first stepped foot in? I think you're muted. You're muted, Tia. We can't hear you.
I was in my advisor's office in college, and I needed to needed more electives. And he told me, I told him I wanted to do ROTC, and he said, well, you got to maintain a 3.0 average or higher in order for you to maintain your scholarship. And there's no way that you're going to be able to do that. And that put me in a state of what I call pistivity, is my word. And I wanted to, like the other young ladies, I wanted to show him I could, but I also wanted to show myself I could. And I did 2 ROTC classes at the same time. And then when I went into my first day on the job, I walked into the building thinking I was going to be the adjutant for that position at that unit, saw that there was a parking space, so I thought I had arrived. To then walk into the office and they tell me, no, ma'am, your parking space is to the back of the building. You're going to be a training officer. So I was in shock of what did I do wrong? Who do I tee off that now I can't get my parking space, because that's what I was looking forward to. But I was received with being the only female, and I'm sure the ladies on the panel can attest, there's many times that you're the only one. And the drill sergeants put their arms around me. I think more so because they had something that didn't look like the other units. So they wanted to make sure that I shine and didn't embarrass them. So they took me under their wing as a snot-nosed lieutenant and made sure that I knew my stuff. I knew it well, and I was confident. So that part of beginning my military journey to me was a positive reinforcement that I had made the right decision.
So let's dig a little bit more into kind of like what military service is like, especially for women veterans. So, and this is a collaborative discussion. So, I encourage all of us to be, proactive, and you guys can also ask questions of each other as well, too, in terms of your service and what all you have experienced as well in the military. But as women veterans during your service, do you feel like you experienced any type of opposition when it comes to serving in combat?
We're just going to jump in here.
Jump in.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
By the way,
Go
I'm the
for it.
comedian of the group. I mean, don't let me get started. You know what? It evolved, right? I came in 1994. I retired in 2020, and the amount of progress I saw in equality and just the ability for women to serve truly without any opposition, it increased as you would expect from in that time in a very positive way. Was it perfect? No. But I would say if I looked back, I feel like I felt compelled to be part of that positive change. Honestly, that's what kept me in 26 years because I wanted to quit so many times, but I was like, no, if I don't stay and fight for this and make it work, then who's going to do it? And I felt a lot of responsibility for that. And I had a lot of great sisters in the Army. And I felt like we were in it together. I love women that support other women. So I love being on this panel with these lovely ladies because they had my back and they made it easier. Was there challenges? Did I have certain leaders, I use air quotes as leaders because they were terrible, that made it more difficult because of my gender? Sure. But they fueled me to push even harder. So I guess maybe in some ways it was meant to be.
Yeah, I would say for me, I didn't have opposition going into combat. Actually, was well supported in because I volunteered to go in and ask for an opportunity to go in and was given that, and I'm appreciative to that particular leader who allowed me that opportunity to see the Army from a different perspective. I would say those challenges that Robin talked about were more so prior to and along the journey of my career. When I tell you that when I first came in, those drill sergeants put their arms around me, made sure that I knew my stuff. But there were some senior leaders that I experienced that told me I had no right to be in the military and that they were going to do everything possible to ensure that I didn't make it to the next rank so that I would be forced to be put out of the military. And that fueled me. That really fueled me after I got over myself and over the shock of it was what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to allow it to be true? Or are you going to push forward and show that you can do this and many other things? And that's what I did. So I don't think anyone in any experience goes through anything without any challenge. If you do, then what's the worth of doing it? Because then you're not learning any lessons, but not any issues in going into combat from my perspective.
So also just giving a little historic perspective on this as well too. This was only in 2013 when it was announced that the ban on women in combat would be lifted entirely. So I mean that actually changed a lot as far as women serving in the military, and of course contributed so much to successes of women rising the ranks in the military as well. So I mean, you know, Brooke, talk about your experiences with that, and this only being just less than 10 years ago that this happened.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's kind of a misnomer, honestly, because so many of us were in combat prior to that being said that you could be allowed. And that's actually part of my She's the Veteran mission is, wait a minute, we were all there. We were all boots on the ground. This is not World War II with the trenches dug where you know exactly where that line in the sand is. This is your front line. We are in a country where people are always trying to kill us no matter where we were. We're in combat. And for me in particular, I never had anything that was people trying to push against me to be in combat. If anything, I had people who believed in my skill set, such as my colonel. I was his medic that he chose to go for PSD, personal security detail. So, I mean, I was on the roads any day that he decided to, which is a lot of the days, all over the place. And so I think whenever, Congress wanted to say suddenly, now it's okay for you to be on the front lines, it was almost offensive to some of us who'd already been there. And that's where I feel like there needs to be more research done for women who've been on the front lines starting 2001, 2002, even going back farther than that, I'm sure, but it's just that my experience is related to post 9/11. And recognizing that we've always stepped up as women. We've always plugged that hole that needed to be plugged. And same thing for pushback. No, they were like, can you be in 3 places at once? We need you here. We need you there. We need, and maybe that's different because I was enlisted and, as a skill set as a medic, there was a time for a while that medics were getting sniped and, we couldn't carry like anything that had like an aid bag or looked like it was going to because they were taking us all out. And, there's just different things like that where along the way it was more about, we just got to get this job done. We got to do the mission. Doesn't matter what gender you are, you're here, you've got the skill set, let's roll.
I love that you said that, Brooke, because I thought it was so ironic that it's like, oh, in 2013, women could be in combat. I'm like, by that point, I had deployed to 02, 03, 05, 07, 08. You know, like I was like, oh, that's right. Now I can be in combat. That's hilarious.
Wait a minute. You didn't go to a princess castle? That's so
What?
weird. That's where they put me.
No, I had this like little box around me that they knew that I was female and they were not allowed to shoot at me.
Someone would have
Yes.
told them that when I was there.
Jay, what about for you? Any unique challenges that you feel like you face as far as any, combat roles or anything that you've experienced, or even you've witnessed other women in the military experiencing?
No, I think that the time that I joined, it was a time that we knew that we needed each other. Again, it was post 9/11. So everyone, kind of leaned on each other and supported each other to get through those times. And I think the deployments at that time were extensive. So the period of time that you're in theater with a certain group of people, you're going to learn how to support one another and move along to get along as a unit. So no, I didn't experience that.
Awesome. That's great. From what it sounds like, all of you have very, very positive experiences when it comes to your service within the military as well. And again, we definitely thank you guys for your service and everything you've done for our country. So starting out, Robin, let's talk a little bit more. What are some challenges specifically that you feel like you have faced throughout your military career?
Well, I think,
if any.
you said like, we had a good career, but it wasn't always roses, Brandon. Like, it wasn't. I think the challenges I face were what a lot of women face, and why I think a lot of women don't stay in the military for a career is I was trying to have a family. How do you balance a post 9/11 op tempo where you're deploying all the time? I was dual military, and we wanted to have a family. I left my children to deploy in 2016. They were 3 and 6 at the time. I missed 2 Christmases with my family because, my husband deployed. As soon as I got home, we high-fived and he deployed. So I think a lot of it is you've got to make sacrifices, right? You got to choose what you're going to do. And so for me, it was largely a conflict or tension between a balance with raising a family and wanting to fulfill a Army career.
So I think that there's also the military has made some strides in terms of providing, especially women and even men who are serving in the military, with more time with their families, especially when they do start a family. Have you seen some of those significant changes that have happened?
Well, they've increased the maternity and paternity leave. I know that. But realistically, I didn't even take the maternity leave that was authorized to me because I was in a key development position as a major when I had my son. My husband wasn't even there for the birth. He was in Afghanistan. I couldn't even talk to him that day because he didn't have a signal to tell him that his son had been born. So, okay, sure. But at the end of the day, the Army or the military comes first. Period. Like, you try to say, people first, mission always. It's really mission first.
Brooke, what are your thoughts?
I agree with her a lot. I think I'm in a different category just because I didn't have children when I was on active duty or deployed. But I definitely saw the effects of that on those around me. And she's correct. There's a lot of women who either got out because they wanted to start a family. They didn't feel like they could do it while they were still serving. And I've actually personally, with the baby I have right now, the 9-month-old, it was kind of nice that they've extended the postpartum care to be 12 months versus the 6 months. And there has been great strides. I think overall, what I try to always remind myself, though, is, man, we've made some good strides, right? Like we think about the ladies that used to be kicked out because they got pregnant, right? Mm-hmm. So now we're actually trying to take care of some of our women. We're trying to come up with different postpartum fitness things. How can we make sure that we're trying, like she's saying, to keep women in, right? Because we're a key component for some of these military forces. Like, look at these ladies on this panel. They donated so much to the military. Like, how great is that? So hopefully they're seeing the benefits of that, and the trend for positive changes is just going to keep going.
I would like to add, Brandon, that, what's important, we're seeing changes, and that's good. We need more or continue in that vein. But what is critical is for leadership. You have the policies that are out there that say you can get X number of days in support of when you have a child. But leadership has to go above and beyond that to see that if I need more time, forget about that policy, take care of me as a soldier and make sure that, or as a service member, and make sure that I get that time to spend time with family. Like Robin, I was gone for 3 years. Tracy is my hero, my boyfriend for 30 years. He held down the fort with 2 girls and a female dog. I mean, the man went through a lot of tissue. I'm here to tell you. But I missed, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, almost missed 12th grade. And that's time you can't get back. So you begin to really think about, although I'm committed to doing this for my life, but is this worth the sacrifices for me to make? Well, after 32 years, of course, the answer was yes, it is important, but at a juncture, you find yourself ebbing and flowing as a female, and I would say also males, of trying to come to terms of I'm missing key things in my children's life that I can't get back. And that's not something that the Army or any service can give back to me. So to be able to be appreciated for the service and sacrifice, I think that's what we have to, as leaders, do better at, regardless of gender, because it is a tremendous sacrifice to do what we do day in and day out in defense of this nation. And it's a lot of stuff that happens, as I always tell my soldiers. I thank you for what you do that I have never or will never see, that allows the machine to keep rolling, because they're doing above and beyond.
Great points there. We're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about resources when we come back on the backside of this. But at the start of the broadcast, of course, you heard from women veterans from around the state who participated in a recent panel discussion at the Sumter Opera House. And there's a community screening of the SCDVA documentary After Action, which is hosted by U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Stacy Pearsall, who's retired as well. Here's part 2 of that discussion.
Women have served since the beginning of this country. I'm in the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution. So I have patriots in my lineage, and they've been serving in this country since that time. But they weren't recognized, and it wasn't official. It came later. And I think finally in the 70s, 1970s and 80s was when everything started to turn around finally. And women have been accepted more so than ever before. Women are in every climb and place, as they say. So the limitations aren't there that were before. We've broken the barriers of women who served in the time period that I did. We came through, we fought our way up through the ranks, and we said, we can do this too.
A lot of different female soldiers come and talk to me, black and white or whatever race it was, but because I was a female, a lot of times, they would come and talk to me to seek advice. I love that that was a real confidence booster for me as well as for them, because they felt as though they could come to me. They felt comfortable enough to come to me and seek that advice. So the experience as far as being a woman, a black female, yes, I did feel like I had to work harder than my male counterparts, because, I did experience, because I was a female, because of my stature, small, petite, female, some felt that I couldn't handle it, whether it be the leadership part of it or the physical aspects of being a leader. So I know I had to be as good as or better than some of my male counterparts, just to prove to them and to myself that, yeah, I can do this. I'm worthy of this, and I deserve this because of the work that I put into it, the work ethic that I did have as a soldier, as a black female soldier.
All right, so some more great stories there from women who have served in the military and how they have talked about improving themselves when it comes to their service, when it comes to their male counterparts. So let's talk about visibility. We talked about visibility in the military as far as your service when you're active, but let's talk about visibility more when it comes to being a veteran. And Brooke, that's one of the reasons why you founded your organization, She's the Veteran, to ensure that women veterans are recognized. Talk about why you are so passionate about this and how, your own personal story of how you created this organization.
Yeah, so it kind of starts the roots being, my last year of PA school, you have to do like a research project, and mine was PTSD is both underdiagnosed, undertreated in the woman veteran. So just kind of looking at some of these ladies who'd been through combat, had different traumatic experiences, developing these things, but no one was really looking at that or paying attention to it or acknowledging that. And then it just came, with South Carolina, over 45,000 women veterans. I was looking for a place to plug in Charleston. And then I thought, I'm just going to find my women. And they have some great organizations here. It's just they didn't have one that was concentrated on women in particular. And as you could tell from our story so far, I mean, we have a different journey. Most women, when they say, I'm going to join, they have either one or both parents say, why would you do that? Don't do it. So the support or lack of at the very beginning kind of follows them throughout their career sometimes. So I think that that's important for women to not be invisible. You find even today, there's a lady I worked with for 2 years before I saw her on an email randomly when they said, thank you for your service in this email. And I went up to her and I was like, wait a minute, you've never told me that you served. And unfortunately, I think that there's such a discount for women, like they discount themselves. They continually say, well, I didn't deploy, I don't count, or I didn't do this, I didn't count, I mean, you heard Shelly on the video a little while ago. She's like, well, I wasn't allowed to go on the boat. Who cares? Y'all blazed trails for even any of the women that came. So it's a big thing for me to always remind these women that your service counts and you matter, and you can't discount yourself. You can't discount how important that was. Because it laid the groundwork for all of us that are here today. I don't know. I think she said she was a WAC and things like that. But how cool is that, right? Because if they were never along the way, we would never be where we are today. And for me to have had the opportunity to serve. So she's the veteran. We're definitely trying to shine the light on those ladies, lift them up, tell them how great they are and how special and how much we appreciate their service to this great country.
Jade, of course, with you being the SCDVA PD Regional Integration Officer, you being a female veteran, you're doing a lot, merging services through our SC Veteran Coalition and the Palmetto Pathfinder Program, ensuring that women veterans are also being heard as well. Kind of talk about some of your experiences that you've with some women that you have met who are joining these programs and some of the great things that they're doing to ensure that their voices are heard as well.
Right. It's really funny. Like every single woman that's on this broadcast today, I've met through my service to SCDVA. Here, when you did the unveiling and you were honored at Claflin University, I was there for you. Robin, whenever you were the MC at Brooks, She's the Veteran event last year, I met you. And Brooke, I met you through our other Rio, who's the Midlands Rio, Heather Durant McEady. So just doing this type of work in the state of South Carolina, which my counties are only the 12 of the PD, but just being in the veteran service area, I've had the opportunity to encounter and meet a vast variety of different women that have given service to their time in service. And then now that they're out as veterans, they're also giving back and pouring into the veteran space. So it's just a miracle and a wonderful thing to be able to still serve in my post-military career.
And even Robin, we talked about you also the CEO of Best Medicine Brigade. Talk a little bit more about why you came up with this organization and how you were able to really help veterans and also their family members as well be able to tell personal stories and use comedy as a best form of medicine for that.
Well, it really started with my transition out of the military. I think like many veterans, it was tough. It felt very lonely. I didn't really have a sense of purpose. I transitioned out during COVID, so was extremely depressed. And I saw this advertisement for a comedy class. And I thought, well, I'll just take that. Like I didn't really have anything else to do, I was just sitting there collecting my retirement and being a mom. And it was COVID. My family was driving me crazy. So I took this comedy class and I loved laughing. I loved writing jokes. I loved performing. I'd always kind of been, like I told you, I came in the military because I was sassy. I always kind of had a little bit of a sense of humor that wasn't always appreciated. So I got into it and it helped me so much through that time that I thought, how do I help other veterans in the same way? And I looked to my left and right and I saw a lot of therapy being offered, a lot of counseling, a lot of medications, but not so much like laughter. And we've always said laughter is the best medicine. So embarked on a journey to find and develop a therapeutic humor program. So Best Medicine Brigade offers that. We've done 48 weeks now of it at the Ralph H. Johnson VA Center in downtown Charleston. We're now doing it virtually for all over the country. We've helped 6,000 veterans to date. And we do that just by helping them cognitively restructure their mind. So when you think of something that upsets you, stresses you, frustrates you, you reframe your thought patterns to think of it in a humorous light. And it actually works, believe it or not. I mean, it works because it makes you feel more in control and more optimistic about the outcomes, even if they're not what you wanted them to be.
And Robin, I'm glad you brought that up when it comes to transition in service. And T.I., I'll propose this question to you as well. When it comes to transition, were there any struggles that you found transitioning from active to now retirement and as a veteran? And being that you also have served as the U.S. Army Reserve's Human Resource Director, you've worked with a lot of veterans themselves. But do you find that there are some women who have experienced some challenges when it comes to transition from military service?
Well, I will tell you from my experience, I mean, the biggest thing for me was, as a general, I have that influence, of what they call influence. Now my influence is over my husband getting up in the morning and fixing me breakfast, where I had 3,500 people before or more. I think the biggest thing for me was that connective tissue that I was used to was, for a period of time, was gone. And I felt a little lost because I didn't have that connective tissue back to my soldiers, back to my fellow colleagues. And I enjoyed that. That was a large part of my life. So finding ways like here of giving back, I created leadership solutions. And that effort is where I teach, giving back the lessons learned over 32 years to help others become better leaders in whatever space they're in. And I find value in that. So I think the biggest thing was, okay, I'm going from this tribe. I got to find a new tribe, as Robin talked about earlier. And how do I connect to that tribe and still feel valued? And I think that's the biggest thing, is still having that same value premise and feel that you had when you were on active duty. Because when you're on active duty, like Jada said, you're in it to win it. We're all a team. It's about mission. Get it. We all know how to get a mission and execute it. But getting up in the morning and there's no, I got to be at PT. I gotta get in the office to have this meeting. I got this soldier that needs my help. Finding new ways to reinvent yourself in that space, I think what is the biggest challenge I faced. But I also think that it's not just something Tia's gone through. I think that all others have experienced something similar to that. Thus, you see these ladies starting their own businesses to meet that need.
I wasn't prepared for the lack of education of HR, like hiring managers. I mean, 26 years, lieutenant colonel, commanded in combat, had 1,000 soldiers, a multi-billion-dollar budget, right? And now I'm getting out of the military and I have hiring managers offering me, because I was logistics, $15 an hour to work in a warehouse. I mean, just the amount of gap and understanding from civilians to military of who we are, what we did, the levels at which we should be transitioning into. And I'm not saying I deserve to be a C-suite executive, but it was very humbling. I mean, the job offers that were very discouraging, and I just felt not valued.
Jade, I think that's an important point. Robin, thank you for bringing that up. When we talk about, connections to a lot of businesses within our communities, that's one of the things that we're doing, at SCDVA to kind of bridge that gap. We're working with a lot of workforce-related organizations within the state, big businesses without the entire state, of course, in the PD and the Low Country, to ensure that veterans are being offered jobs that they deserve. Can you talk about that workforce connection when it comes to that, and what you guys are doing as regional integration officers to bridge that gap to ensure that veterans have the employment that they deserve?
So it's a couple of different things, Brandon. I'm glad that you brought it up. As Robin was talking about being underpaid once she got out of the military and being offered a job making $15 an hour after her term in service, knowing that she was worth more than that. One of the programs that we promote and assist is going to be the employment program that we have at the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. We have people that are dedicated to identifying jobs out in the different parts of South Carolina that's going to be tailored for our military personnel that have transitioned out and are now veterans. And we have a minimum of pay that we ask for when we ask these employers to sign up for that employee recognition program. Another thing that we do is the South Carolina Veterans Coalition, Brandon, which you mentioned. We partner with different agencies across the state. It can be a nonprofit, federal programs, state-funded programs, any organization that's going to have a service that they provide to our veterans, which employment is one of the lines of efforts that we work on the most to ensure that our veterans are not being underemployed, but they're being employed to their value and receiving a pay that's matching what they're worth. And then also we have programs that are going to assist them with transferring their DD-214 information and their military resumes. We have people that are going to assist them with translating that skill set into a civilian resume that's going to make sure that they get what they're worth as far as getting a job in the civilian sector.
Now, and that brings up a good point as well, too. And going back to Brooke, when we're talking about transition, I know a lot of times, there's a reason why, your organization exists and as well as Robin's. But when we talk about that transition, and even when it comes to support and resources, do you find that oftentimes women are reluctant to come forward to say, hey, I need some assistance or I need some support?
I think so. As a whole, women don't prioritize themselves, right? A lot of times it's, the animals come first, the kids come first, your significant other comes first, you're a caretaker of a sick parent, you have all these other things on your list. And so a lot of times women are not necessarily looking into resources. It's not necessarily that they're not out there. And that was a big deal for me starting this organization, was how can I reach some of these women? If, mental health is suffering and it's underdiagnosed and undertreated, these women aren't going to go seek out stuff. So how can I make this like a mental health activity that, number one, they don't have to have a diagnosis to attend. They don't have to, qualify all these different things, such as retired. Sometimes women used to think that they'd have to be retired to participate in veteran things. So just kind of taking off the barriers and things so women can prioritize themselves for once. And it's been really great, especially like the activities. We make sure it's women veterans only. So they get to come there and actually do whatever the skill set is for a couple of hours and take all those hats off. I think that women were constantly thinkers and analyzers and multitaskers. And so if we have someone there that we're having to take care of or see, is my kid jumping on the wall? Is my significant other having a good time or not? If we take those things off the table, then you find that these women are actually taking the mental health break that they need. And most of the feedback is generally, I didn't know how much I needed this. And some of them, they end up going on to get to those resources and say, you know what, I really see how important my mental health is, and I need to get a check-in for that. And you see them kind of going to the different things at the VA and, coming back and just being so excited about finally taking care of themselves and prioritizing themselves.
Yeah, especially when it comes to resources, and that's a great lead into another break that we're going to take and talk about. We have a list of resources that you'll see scrolling at the bottom of your screen. Of course, we're talking about, the Best Medicine Brigade. And of course, She's the Veteran. And also the USDVA has a plethora of resources. There's the Center for Women Veterans that's available through the USDVA. And of course, us, the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. We have connections directly to women's veterans resources at VAs throughout the entire state here in South Carolina. But also another maybe unknown resource that's here in South Carolina that we're, South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs, we've actually partnered with the Emory Healthcare Veterans Program. And we recently spoke with specialists at Emory about a unique treatment options that this program has to offer, not only just for all veterans, but for women as well. And it's absolutely free. So we want you to take a listen to this story and find out more information about how you can participate. This is an SCDVA News Minute. The South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs is working to ensure that veterans have access to mental health resources available here in the Palmetto State and beyond. SCDVA has a partnership with Emory Healthcare Veterans Program based in Atlanta, Georgia. The program is free and confidential and available to post 9/11 veterans and service members regardless of location, discharge status, deployment history, or length of service. Veterans who participate in the program will receive treatment for invisible wounds such as post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, anxiety, and depression. World-renowned Emory clinical psychologist Dr. Barbara Rothbaum leads the team of professionals at the Emory Healthcare Veterans Program and signed a partnership agreement with SCDVA in 2021 to offer this unique program to veterans in South Carolina. Amari Poindexter and James Brown are both military veterans and serve as veteran outreach coordinators at Emory. They recently traveled to South Carolina to inform veterans of the benefits of the program.
Our program hammers on, owning your experience and making you an advocate for yourself. The wellness practices that we offer at the Emory Healthcare Veterans Program, like acupuncture, yoga, massage therapy, is not only just good for the veteran, but it's also good for their families. And that is something that we want them to carry on once they leave the program into their normal lives.
I myself, as an Air Force veteran, can definitely relate to a lot of the traumas and stigmas that some of the veterans have dealt with throughout their military career. And I just want to let them know that coming to a program like this is going to be beneficial to the well-being of their life. If you really take the 2 weeks to focus on yourself and really believe that treatment works and actually work with the clinicians that are staff, you're definitely going to leave better than what you came. You're going to leave feeling, our program empowers veterans to do more. And it sets veterans on a path to achieve some of the things they may didn't think they could achieve once they left the military. And that's one of our main focuses, is making them feel whole again.
The program offers both traditional outpatient treatment as well as a 2-week intensive outpatient program, either in person at Emory Healthcare or via telehealth in eligible states. Currently, the telehealth option is not yet available in the Palmetto State, but there is a bill making its way through the state legislature that would allow mental health specialists across state lines to practice telepsychology in South Carolina. Sean Lewis, the lead Veterans Outreach Coordinator for EHVP, says, "It is my hope that this will be passed this session and we will be able to offer telehealth options to South Carolina patients. Until that happens, South Carolina veterans and service members will need to come to Georgia for treatment. However, we cover the cost of transportation, lodging, and meals for our 2-week intensive program. We'll fly them in or reimburse them for mileage if they choose to drive." For more information on the Emory Healthcare Veterans Program or to schedule an appointment, visit scdva.sc.gov. So as you see, there are a lot of unique resources that are available to veterans across the entire state of South Carolina and even beyond, resources that are being offered, right there in the state of Georgia, in Atlanta, and it's all being offered for free. And we're talking about, some traditional ways of post-traumatic stress disorder and also dealing with some of those resources. But Robin, I love the fact that you actually have a non-traditional approach to therapy, being able to provide a space for veterans to come and not only listen to, great comedy, but also to be able to talk to each other, share stories, and also gain support for resources that they need as well, too.
Thank you. It's the best. I don't even feel like it's work. It's definitely a passion project. And we've had so many positive responses where veterans have said, this is the best thing the VA has done for me. So we're really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it. Like I said, right now it's a volunteer program. So healarius.org is our website, and that's where we're doing all the good stuff.
Awesome. And Brooke, I know for you, your organization, I've heard so many great things about it. Of course, Heather, who works with us, she's our Midlands Regional Integration Officer. She is definitely touted, and Jade as well is touted, your organization. I love the great things that you guys are doing. But, talk about some more of the resources that, some of the work that you're doing to ensure that, the light for women veterans is not being diminished, because you kind of have a unique story itself in terms of how women veterans are sometimes overlooked in some ways.
Yeah. So a couple of things I would like to say for what we're actually doing that's a little bit tangible. We base our whole activity on skill set. So it's neuroplasticity. I'm a brain nerd. That's what I do on the daily for my PA job. And it's about how do we retrain the brain for good thoughts over bad thoughts. And part of that is by learning a skill. So this month we did golf. Next month it's going to be a surfing and yoga workshop. May is going to be fishing. June is our really big event. If there's any women veterans listening, we're going to have June 10th for our Women Veterans Day celebration. It's where everybody comes out. Only women veterans get to let their hair down. We have open bar, food. Last year we had stand-up comedy with Robin Phoenix herself. We have our MC, Tessa Spencer, who's also a woman veteran here in town that's a news anchor, going to step up again this year. So it's really about those mental health breaks that we talk about, and it's learning the skills. And so those are the tangibles that we have, and nothing but positive feedback, just like for Robin's program, which was why it was so great to partner with her last year on that. So far as, what are we doing to shine the light? One of our things was Woman Veteran of the Year. So Heather Durant McEady, fantastic. We started that last year. So she's very involved in our program, one of our great members, and we were so excited to honor her last year. We're going to do it again this year and see who our Woman Veteran of the Year. But currently she reigns until June 10th. So if anybody didn't know that about Heather, go ahead and tell her congratulations, because she deserves it. And it really comes down to people who are out there, women, veterans that are out there in the community making a difference and going above and beyond, and just making sure they're doing everything they can to help veterans and make the world a better place. And if anybody's met Heather, you know that the world is a much better place with her in it. She's fantastic.
Yes, awesome. No, we appreciate that shout out for sure. And when it comes to resources for visibility of women veterans, because we know that women do not often consider themselves or even identify as veterans, as you guys just mentioned. But the VA also has the I Am Not Invisible campaign, which was actually active since February of 2017. And also the Library of Congress has the Veterans History Project. So, Tia, bringing things back to you, what do you think are some reflections that you may have in terms of ensuring that women are making their voices heard when it comes to being a veteran and the work that they're doing in our community to ensure that their voices are heard?
Well, first, I'd like to say I read something here this week about how VA is changing its mission to be more inclusive. I think that's a tremendous start. You put your put action behind the words of saying that service members, regardless of gender, is important and are valued. So to me, that's extremely great start. But as far as being able to get out there and be a part of the community, I mean, here today, I just came back from helping Veterans Bridge Home clean up a forgotten cemetery that was forgotten for 50 years. So getting out in the community and letting the community know that you're here, and that your service mattered then, and it matters now, and that the breadth of information and insight that you bring to any organization should be valued, and they should be seeking you out. But first, we have to acknowledge that we do bring something to the table. So I encourage VA to continue on its path of inclusivity, and commend these ladies on the panel to continue doing what you're doing. Those avenues and outlets to be able to connect with the community are more important than you ever know. And regardless of rank, rank does not have a play in this part. It's just being human. To be able to connect with your fellow sisters is extremely important. So I commend you.
And I kind of want to close things out with a collaborative discussion amongst you all. What would you say, what inspiring message do you have, or would you say to any young women who are looking to join the military today?
I guess I'll go first since I've been going. It's your fault.
I was waiting for Robin to go for it. Go for it.
Well, he started. So, look, this is what I would say. We have a growing culture of me, influencers, and I need more followers and more likes, and it's all about me. And trust me, I know this in the entertainment industry because I have to play the game. But at the end of the day, what I loved about the military, if you're going to go in the military, it's not about you. It is about the people to your left and right. It is a team sport. And that is, if that sounds good to you, then go for it. If it doesn't, probably not a good choice. So that would be my advice, is remember, it's about the people.
Robin, what thoughts would you have for any women who are looking to join the military today? What words of inspiration would you use to inspire them?
Oh, did I just?
I'm sorry, Brooke. I'm sorry. Yeah, you just answered, Robin. Brooke.
Well, for starters, I like to always tell people, I mean, joining the Army for me is and will likely always be the best decision I ever made for myself. It took me to where I am today. It is a huge part of my story. Next month it'll be 14 years since I, raised my right hand and joined. And I would say if they have any interest, if they have a curiosity, even in the back of their mind, that's like, I don't know, could I do this or could I not? There's many of you like us that were before you that had the same question. And just like, me and Jade were talking about, like, we just dug deep and, made it happen. And you can do hard things. And I think that's one of the best things about going for it. If you have a thought at all, don't ever look back and wonder if you did. Just go for it, try it. There's many of us that have came before you. So if we can do it, you can do it. And don't give up on yourself. Don't make yourself short just based on what other people might say.
Jade, same question to you as well.
If they're even thinking about it, I would say just do it. Like, let any amount of fear, the nervousness, let it drive you and push you forward. For me, just like Brooke said, it was the absolute single best decision I have ever made in my life. And it's the gift that continues to keep on giving. I never realized from being in high school to being in ROTC to joining the active duty Army to being in the reserve, and I went back as a private contractor working for the Army overseas. And then now I'm back stateside, still serving veterans and still serving the military in a way like I had no idea it would shape and mold my life and make it as culturally rich as it has been. So if there's any thought or a question about doing it, just do it.
Yeah, I will say, kind of echoing a lot of what the ladies have already shared. Best decision after 32 years looking back that I made. Would have never thought that a snot-nosed girl from Darlington, South Carolina would be a general officer in the United States Army. I would say to the women, if it is something I would always tell my kids, anything new they wanted to try out, do your research. The first place I would tell you to start is read the oath, because those 72 indelible words have a lot in it. If you take time to really chew on it and think about it, that you're willing to raise your right hand and sacrifice and give the ultimate sacrifice for someone else to have the ability, or your children or your family members to have the ability to choose, whose choice may not be aligned with yours. And that takes a special person. That takes someone that understands who they are, what they want in life, and are willing to go after it come hell or high water. I would say to the women, remember, empowered women empower women. So find that thing that drives you, whether it's in the military or it's not in the military, if it's in support of the military in a different capacity, whatever that is, go after it with a hunger and a burning desire that you're not going to stop until you reach your goal. And then pull somebody else along with you. Wow.
That was very inspiring. I think that, as they would say, let the church say amen on that one. Awesome. Ladies, thank you so much, not only for your service, but thank you so much for being here today to tell your incredible stories, to share your words of inspiration to women veterans everywhere, and also to women who are looking to join the military as well. I think that, this discussion is something that is one that we will continue just beyond Women's History Month. It's not something that we just talk about in March. It's something that we can talk about all year. And, I thank you guys so much for being here, for everyone who is watching, and for those who are looking to watch later. This broadcast will be featured on our social media channels, so definitely watch there and spread it to your friends and family members who weren't able to watch live when it was happening, but it will be recorded and it will be on our social media channels. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining, and thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. So nice to see you, ladies. Good to see you, Brandon.
I got new sisters now.
That's right.
All right.